support teaching and learning efficacy materials, STEM. STEM.
STEM education is vital because it follows a transversal educational approach where science, technology, engineering and mathematics are all taught to develop critical thinking, creativity and logical thinking in a student. STEM education is becoming more and more important, where enabling and encouraging students in critical thinking and building skills in early education can enhance them to think logically and be better decision makers in the future. It is significant to have a platform that provides opportunities for students as well as those working in STEM to interact and share their knowledge on STEM disciplines. And this forum is aimed to provide an avenue for discussion and exchange of ideas on STEM education in Bhutan between participants and those working in STEM.
STEM education globally, as you all know, is a very vital component of any thriving economy and a prosperous nation, because it brings a deeper focus to the authentic problem solving, and it enhances the 21st century transversal skills like collaboration, creativity and critical thinking. For that matter, when you talk about quality STEM education, it's about quality teaching and learning. So therefore, at this critical juncture, it is of very high importance for us to reimagine how we teach and learn the STEM concept in our country.
As we can see here, we've been constantly talking, we've been constantly engaging about how we can change our education system as a whole, because I feel like it's a very important factor. Right now, as you can see, the number of students here, it's quite an impressive number. But if you really look at it, all of the students here, we've been influenced at a point at our life. And because of that, we're here today. We're driven by technology. We want to work in STEM. But there are so many other children who still needs that influence, still needs that drive. And so my question is, I bet most of the students have been wondering as well. And I would like to direct this question to Sir Sharaf. What are you planning to do to change the education system as a whole? And what's stopping you from changing it? Is there any risk in particular that is stopping to change our education system as a whole? Because we've seen so many examples in foreign countries. We have that mindset, we have the idea how we want to change the system. But then we are not still doing it. It's been so long. And of course, we've tried it in a few recent years, especially after lockdown. We've tried some ideas, I guess, or some change in the curriculum. But I feel like it's not really helping. It hasn't been a huge step what we really need. So is there anything in particular you would like to elaborate on?
Thank you for the question. Your good name?
Ugin Palden.
Ugin Palden. Okay, thank you Ugin for the question. I think it's a very pertinent question given many things that are happening in the education system. But the views that I'm going to share here doesn't in any way represent the views and the plans the ministry is currently having. It's just my personal view, being in the education system for at least 8 years now. Our education system, the modern education system that has started since 1960s in our country, has served its role. We are all here because we are the product of our own education system. It has served its purpose, but education is very dynamic. It's evolving constantly, and then I think that's where the innovation and then the creative role of educating the students are coming in. But when you reflect in our own education system, many essential components are still missing in our education system. For example, let's just take an example of the things that is happening here today. That we have opened the floor for questioning, and then you are the first person to ask question after repeated probing from the moderator. So question asking culture is very poor in our school system. I have served as teacher for 7.5 years, and then the moment we pose a question, all the student will be muted. So that's one of the real problem that we are actually facing. In order to have a curious and inquisitive mind, the student have to be very observant, really observant. That's one of the fundamental scientific skills also. And then, based on your observation, your interpretation of the knowledge, you have to ask questions. Because as Ma'am Yishi mentioned a moment ago, there's no right or wrong way in learning. As long as it fulfills your own mandate, as long as you know that you are growing on daily basis, you are learning, you are progressing. So question asking mechanism, or the question asking ability, enhancing the question asking ability of a student is one of the lapses. But on the curriculum front, having taken part in curriculum development, and then also having oriented teachers on this particular field, I have a little experience on it, but we still need to do a lot more in the curriculum. We have to make the curriculum, especially when you talk about the depth and breadth of the curriculum. I think teachers in the field are experiencing the enormous pressure to complete the syllabus on time. That's where teachers do not have the real time to look at all this innovation aspect, creative aspect, because they have to complete the syllabus on time. And at the end of the day, there's a standardized test being placed to really look at the level of achievement the students are actually having. But as Ma'am Ishi mentioned a moment ago, it's very difficult to determine the full potential of the student based on one standardized test. If you have to plot a graph, you have an x-axis, y-axis, and then you plot a slope, whether it is inclining or declining. You should at least have few points. One standardized test at class 10 or class 12, it's just like a one dot in that particular plotting. So you cannot really determine whether if the student aced the class 12 test, it doesn't necessarily mean, of course, with all the due respect to all the students who ace their test and do well, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the student is an all-rounder and he can do well in life. It's just a one point in the slope. So in order to determine, then you have to look at the next steps, next point on the slope, so that you can say that whether the trend line is going up or trend line is going down. But the little hope that I live with and I carry is that reform is going on in a very huge way, and then with this reform we are hoping that the whole system of education will be transformed, and then it will be able to deliver the expectation, huge expectation being placed on the education system. Of course, we have a lot of constraint still. We have resource constraint. We can think about bringing the virtual laboratory, the expensive virtual laboratory in our classroom system, but our ministry is still facing a shortage of the fund to buy all those virtual laboratory thing. And then even if you look at, as a physics teacher myself in the school, when I try to use the virtual laboratory, we have to go for the free trial virtual lab, which doesn't actually give us more access, it's just at the surface level. So there are a lot of challenges, but we can always place our hope for the better thing, and with this reform going on and the transformation happening.
Thank you.
Maybe I just want to add, as Ugen asked, to what Sir mentioned, again going back, reforms, the change takes time. Let's all think about taking learning as one's prerogative, my own responsibility, right? Now it's not very easy to push that around. So I want to give two models. We have about 50 people here, multiply effect. If each one of us talk about taking responsibility of our own learning path, we create our own learning path, whether you are in class 1 or 9, or you're in college, or you are a professional. I want to learn something, I create a learning path, right? No university may give me that learning path, but I want to be able to write an artificial intelligent agent program. For me to do that in 3 months, I want to learn this book, I want to do this YouTube, I want to do this. I make my own learning path, and we can do that at any point in time, right? So I want to pass that message. We are 50 here. If you have a multiply effect and talk about making our own learning path as the system evolves, and if we pass on to another 50, the 50 pass on to another 50 about being responsible and making our own learning path, I think that's an interesting way to spread a culture of learning. Like we inspire one each every time. And also think about hub and spoke model, right? So 10 of you can get together as a hub, and then you spoke it out, and you spread the message of taking learning in our own hands. So I just thought of adding that as systems change, individuals can do so much. Multiply effect and hub and spoke model. Think about that, and let's take learning path in our own hands. I want to learn this, how I create my own syllabus, if I may say.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Please go ahead.
This is just like a small question regarding to what Sir has just said. He talked about like the multiplying effect, and I'm pretty sure all of us are like well aware about that. It's more like regarding to the cycle of learning. It's like the sharing portion, right? Sharing or like this multiplying effect, it isn't really encouraged in our society, and I feel that people most of the time were embarrassed of doing it so, because when you like, especially, it doesn't matter if you're sharing on platforms and such like that, they encourage you. But then when you're trying to share it to your friends, you know, to your close ones, they don't take it too seriously. They don't, okay, I'll try it. They do it for just like the sake of it, right? And then it makes you feel discouraged. Like you don't feel like sharing it to other people, and you like tend to keep it to yourself. So is there any advice you could give it regarding something like that?
The only thing that comes to my mind is persistence. Let's look at history. Who are the people who have been influencers around the world are the ones who have been persistent on their idea. It's not easy, but if I have a thought and I think it's good, I may find 5 people who is pushing me in the opposite direction, like friction, which is important, right? But you need to find that 6th one. And that's how persistent, how confident, how persistent are you on your idea about multiply effect, for example, or about sending a rocket to the moon, right? I mean, whatever it is, how confident are you in doing that? I mean, look at the history of Nikola Tesla, right? His life from Serbia to all the way to US and all these faced, and most of our technological thing that we have is based so much of what Nikola Tesla did. If he had given up, maybe not. It's persistence, and it's and you know, we need a couple of people in society to make that ball rolling. Then after that, it'll be a snowball effect, right? Whether you look at Silicon Valley, the way it evolved, or you look at the innovation culture in Israel, the way it evolved. If you go back to history, again, that's why I like history, because it gives you inspiration, right? And it has always, it will always be that there are these persistent change elements and change individuals who has made that system. And after some time, everybody will start listening to you.
Thank you. I hope you are that bold and persistent enough to share to your friends and bring more in this circle. Okay, any other questions?
Some rural places and places where STEM education is not popular, the students might struggle to know what STEM education is, as most of us here also struggle to know what STEM education was before. By reading some articles and watching some news, I came to learn that only some schools get to participate in that particular program.
Okay, well, I would like to add on her topic. What are the ways to close the opportunity gaps between rural and urban students? And how do you think we can also involve differently able students to learn STEM and ensure accessibility and inclusivity in STEM learning?
Thank you so much for the question, and I'm really happy, me being very positive-minded, I'm really happy that at least you knew about the STEM Festival. So this is the first time that we organize the STEM Festival, and for us also, being the experimenters that we are, we just try out different things, and whatever works for us, we take flight with that. The STEM Festival is one of the activities, the main activities of the Women in STEM group, and this is exactly where we are coming from. Like you mentioned, you know, so many people get left behind, and especially in the rural communities of Bhutan, where there is no internet access, where your parents are not very educated, they are farmers, they are not there to, you know, guide you about the STEM science, and you know, they don't have the time to take you out for field trips and things like that. So this is exactly why we are doing this, and this is the first time that we have had the STEM Festival in Thimphu this year. And we plan to continue this STEM Festival, and we want to go from Thimphu to Paro to Tashigang to Dagana to Samdrup Jongkhar, Pemagatsel, Shemgang, Laya also, all the places we want to take this STEM Festival, and we just want to create a culture where science and technology is really seen for the beautiful thing that they are. It is so amazing. If in the past we did something like what we're doing right now with technology, people would have said this is magic. And it is magical. But we don't realize that, and we don't have the eye to see it right now. So through the STEM Festival, we are trying to introduce science and technology to everybody, not just students, not just parents or teachers, everybody in the society. We're just trying to bring everybody into one place and say, like, you know, science is so beautiful, it is amazing, it can, you know, transform this world, and it is magical, say. So thank you so much for the question, and we are not going to stop here. We can't stop and we won't stop. We are going to go further with it, and like Sir Ujjwal mentioned, we have to be persistent no matter how many challenges we face on the way, and it is just going to keep us motivated further.
Maybe like just to add on what Ma'am Nishi just shared, it's about making STEM a part of everyday language, as our beloved King envisioned. That's also like tracing back to my talk, that is like STEM for STEM model. When you talk about support system, it's all about having all those mechanisms in place, not just in Thimphu, because Thimphu is not Bhutan, right? We have many other places to make that builds up to our nation. So when you talk about reaching to the far-flung area, and even like when you talk about making our STEM approach inclusive in nature, it's all about having different avenues, different platforms to engage students, to nurture their talent, and to let them showcase their talent. It's not just the Ministry of Education's responsibility to create all this platform. It is an avenue for collaboration from different stakeholders to come in place, like what the amazing work done by Women in STEM group. They have already successfully conducted the first national STEM fair, and then, you know, and now there's a STEM forum, and then there are a lot of, like, we should make STEM a part of our everyday language by organizing a lot of activities, engagement programs, so that one way or other students are knowing about it, students are engaged on it, and then students are actually getting to express what they know. I believe STEM education is not for all those like high achiever and creative student. In the recent STEM fair that the Women in STEM conducted, there are some students whom I actually personally taught who are just average student, but they also won like runners-up prize for that particular competition. So it's all about the drive, the curiosity that you have, and then the innovation that you have to bring in the particular solution to a problem. I think the opportunities are plenty, but as I have mentioned earlier, we should have a strong support mechanism to reach this STEM education, not just in Thimphu, but nationwide.
What are we going to be talking about this topic in 5 years? What is the future trend? What do you envision us talking about this?
I think the conversation has started, which is very important that we start somewhere. And things like the STEM Festival, trying to take it back to the grassroots, I think are very important. The way I think is, and the questions that came, digital divide, the science divide that you rightly asked, I think it also shows that we are already reflecting on what is happening, right? So that is important, and I'm very encouraged. I want us to look at each of these questions not from the negative point of view, because we need to ask critical questions, right? But with an aspiration to find solutions to those questions. And as they say, if you identify the problem and be honest that there is a problem, you'll find solutions. We all will find solutions, right? And that's I hope where our conversation will be moving forward in 5 years, and progressively every year. We progressively build on the momentum that we have today, and progressively be able to be critical in our own works very positively, and use the tools provided by science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I hope we are not only talking about it, but we would have solved a lot of problems and taken that solutions beyond our boundaries. And I think all of us, with you all now in that space, hope we create solutions for the problems, not only for 700,000 of us, but the 8 billion of us. And that's how we grow our economy. That's how we put Bhutan in the world map. And I do hope that all of us will be a part of that journey progressively over 5 years and beyond. Right?
5 years from now, I would like to see the vibrant research culture being established in the education system, and specifically in the field of STEM and innovation. Because if you look at, there is a really dearth of literature in Bhutanese context when you talk about STEM education. But my hope is like more and more innovative mind actually delve into the STEM education and then try to contribute the, explore the niche market that we have in Bhutan, and then contribute to the world of academia by publishing research papers in the field of STEM and innovation.
As we are speaking about it, we really realize the magnitude of this problem. We have a very pertinent problem, and this is not a problem that we have just in Bhutan, but all over the world, even in developed nations. So there's nothing that discriminates any nation against each other when it comes to education. Even first world countries like the US, Canada, Singapore, Japan, they are struggling with how to constantly keep up with the education system. In Bhutan too, we face a similar situation, and this is a global problem. And I feel that just by us realizing that this is a problem also puts us in a position to do something and solve this problem. Now, if we in Bhutan, like Sir Ujjwal mentioned, if we can experiment and try out so many different things and find something that addresses this problem, I think then we will be able to put ourselves in the global stage and say that this is what we have learned and tried and tested in Bhutan, and this is what we share and what we are going to give back to the rest of the world. A way of education and learning that has never been discovered before. So these kind of forums, these kind of discussions, I think we are gearing towards that. And I am trying so many different things like the STEM Festival and so on, but these may not be the ultimate solutions. But at least 5 years down the line, I would like to be doing some other activities as well, saying that, oh, the activities that I did in the past, they're maybe like 80% okay, but it doesn't solve the whole problem. So I'll have to try a few more other things. So for me personally, and for the whole movement of finding a solution to this global problem of education and learning, I hope that we would have made some progress into that, and we will be able to share certain experiences that we have had in Bhutan with the rest of the world.
Thank you. So one last, in 30 seconds, what is your main message to our audience today?
I think I would say be persistent, be creative to looking at problems. Let's not be bogged down by problems. I think problems are opportunities, and as they say, if you solve a problem that matters to 1 billion people, you actually create $1 billion industry, right? So problems are good, and let's look at problems as opportunity to create solutions that solve society's issues and also develop our economy.
I would just like to say, be curious, do whatever you want at that point in time, and just be true to yourself. Do not live a life that somebody envisioned for you. So always chase your own dreams, and no matter how difficult it gets along the way, always know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So if you don't see the light yet, I think you still have to keep going.
Maybe like as Steve Jobs once said, stay foolish, stay hungry, keep on learning and keep on growing.
Okay, if you have any queries and clarifications to be made, you can feel free to drop them on our Facebook or Instagram pages, and we'll reach back to you after consulting our speakers. And this brings us to the end of our Winter STEM Forum, and I would like to express my gratitude to our speakers for impressive inputs, and also all the participants for joining us here today. It was a real pleasure to have you all here, and let us look forward to next spring STEM Forum, which will be held next year in March. So it will have more exciting STEM topics, so please do join us. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.